Today's topic for discussion is perinatal tumors. Myself, Dr. Vinay, and moderator is Dr. Deepak sir. Uh, Today we are going to discuss about introduction, general principles of perinatal tumors, and common specific lesions, uh, and their antenatal and postnatal management, followed by conclusion. Coming to introduction, the neonatal tumors are heterogeneous group of neoplasms that are diagnosed prenatally or within 30 days of life. The true incidence of perinatal tumors are unknown because the studies do not calculate the stillbirths, abortions, miscarriages, and all. So the most solid neoplasms in neonates are benign. The incidence of neonatal malignant tumors is around 1 is to 12,500 to 27,500 per live births, and these neonatal tumors comprises about 2% of whole childhood cancers. The benign and malignant tumors, like in adult or older children, the nuclear cytoplasmic ratio, high mitotic rate, anaplasia may also present in benign tumors of neonates. Coming to origin of the neonatal tumors, these are embryonic. These are from embryonic and immature tissues. There will be intrinsic dysfunction of cellular growth and proliferation, but like adults and older children, there will be little or no environmental exposure. Some malignant lesions, they have minimal potential for invasion or mets, and few neonatal malignant tumors, benign tumors, become lethal because of their size and location. Coming to diagnosis, the prenatal ultrasonography is the standard of care, and MRI is nowadays being increasingly used after USG. The ultra first MRI, which limits fetal motion artifact and does not require maternal or fetal sedation. Coming to emotional impact, the neonatal tumors has emotional impact on the family. We should be very cautious before making any diagnosis or prognosis of the disease based on prenatal imaging. The normal anatomical variants appear neoplastic in neonates, and few lesions regress spontaneously. So we should be very cautious before making any statements. In prenatal USG, polyhydramnios, fetal hydrops, hepatosplenomegaly, and placentomegaly are suspicious of undiagnosed tumor. Coming to distribution of commonly occurring neonatal tumors, the most common tumors are teratomas, followed by neuroblastoma, soft tissue sarcomas, tumors, leukemia, CNS tumors, and followed by rarely renal tumors, hepatic tumors, retinoblastoma, and cardiopulmonary tumors. Now we'll discuss in brief about which all the tumors are common in different systems, followed by in detail discussion of few tumors like teratomas, sacrococcygeal teratoma, and all, and hepatic tumors and all. So in central nervous system, the most common solid tumor in childhood, leading cause of cancer death in children. The incidence is around 5.5 per lakh. The brain tumors in fetuses and neonates are unique. They are supratentorial compared to older children, which are infratentorial. The most common tumors, CNS tumors, are teratomas, followed by primitive neuroectodermal tumors, astrocytomas, and choroid plexus tumors. The 5-year survival rate is around 23 to 36%. The central nervous system tumors are managed with surgical resection, chemotherapy, or radiotherapy. Coming to head and neck tumors, in head and neck, we can see the congenital lesions, inflammatory masses, malignant and benign neoplasms. The congenital lesions are most common, followed by inflammatory, malignant, and benign neoplasms. The most common congenital lesions are branchial cleft, followed by thyroglossal and dermoid cysts. Coming to cervical vascular masses, these are divided into congenital and infantile hemangiomas. The vascular malformations are present at birth. They grow with the child, but they do not involute. The congenital hemangiomas, which are comprises about 3% of the neonatal tumors, they develop in neonatal period. That means they grow intrauterine, followed by they proliferate in the neonatal period, followed by complete involution. The infantile hemangiomas, which comprise about 4 to 5% of the neonatal tumors, which arise following birth, and they proliferate along with the child and ultimately involute. Coming to malignant head and neck lesions, these lesions are very rare in neonates. Around 60% of these lesions are non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and around 40% are Hodgkin's lymphoma. Biopsy is advised, followed by multidisciplinary approach for staging and treatment. In head and neck neuroblastomas, they typically metastatic ones. The primary cervical neuroblastomas are comprises only about 5% of the neonatal neuroblastoma. The prenatal diagnosis of the lesions is possible. The tumors which are diagnosed prenatally have better prognosis in head and neck. So the other rare cancers of head and neck are salivary carcinoma, thyroid carcinoma, and nasopharyngeal carcinoma. Coming to thoracic tumors, in thoracic tumors, they may be mediastinal, pleural, or pulmonary neoplasms. In anterior mediastinum, that is situated between the sternum and the pericardium, the common tissues are the thymus and thyroid tissue, posterior part of the thyroid. And the lesions here we come across are thymomas, teratomas, and very rarely thyroid tumors. These anterior mediastinal tumors, when they are large, which can cause polyhydramnios and preterm labor, the perinatal decomposition and death are associated with obstruction. The large cardiac tumors are very rare. In that, rhabdomyomas are most common tumors, followed by fibromas, myxomas, and teratomas. The pericardial based teratomas, which are exceedingly rare, found in middle mediastinum. Based on the size and location, these tumors can cause dysrhythmias and impairment of the cardiac function. The great vessel compression may result in fetal hydrops and neonatal demise. In posterior mediastinum, the most of the tumors are neurogenic. Ganglioneuromas are the most common, benign, which arise from the mature Schwann and ganglion cells. The ganglioneuroblastomas are malignant tumors, contain both mature and immature elements of ganglion cells. And neuroblastomas are the most common malignancy and second most common tumor in childhood. From immature in neonates, they arise from the immature undifferentiated ganglion cells. Coming to pulmonary lesions, the pulmonary lesions are rarely true neoplasms. The most common abnormalities found in pulmonary area are congenital pulmonary malformations, intra and extralobar pulmonary sequestrations, and congenital lobar emphysema. The pleuropulmonary blastomas are the primary pulmonary malignancies, which are very rare, aggressive tumors. They possess solid with cystic components, can be misdiagnosed with benign lesions of the pulmonary area. Around 90% of the pulmonary cystic lesions in children are benign. Coming to abdominal or retroperitoneal or pelvic tumors, the hepatic lesions comprises about 5% of the neonatal tumors, the most common intra-abdominal neonatal tumors, followed by neuroblastomas, which are seen in retroperitoneal region, and teratomas seen in pelvic masses, which are found as pelvic masses. The hepatic lesions, the most common lesion in neonates is hemangioma. that is about 60%, followed by mesenchymal hamartoma and hepatoblastoma. About these tumors we'll discuss later. The renal tumors, hydronephrosis and cystic diseases comprises about 40% of the neonatal abdominal masses. The congenital mesoblastic nephroma, that is the most common neonatal renal malignancy, followed by Wilms tumor, rhabdoid tumor of the kidney, and clear cell sarcoma. The congenital mesoblastic nephroma can be diagnosed as early as second trimester, and Wilms tumor can be diagnosed as early as third trimester. Coming to teratoma, that is most common neonatal tumor, most prevalent pelvic neoplasms. The neonatal testicular tumors are rare. In testicular germ cell tumors, teratomas and yolk sac tumors are common. In yolk sac tumors are most common testicular malignancy in children. The serum AFP level is elevated in around 90% of the cases. The benign, in case of benign testicular tumors, the testicle sparing excision can be advised, and if malignancy is seen in frozen section, radical orchidectomy is advised. In ovarian cysts, either benign or malignant neoplasms, the true neonatal ovarian masses are very rare. The majority of the fetal and neonatal ovarian masses are cystic. They are simple lesions. Observation is advised. For larger and more complex lesions, surgical excision with parenchyma preservation is advised. Coming to extremities and soft tissues, the benign and malignant tumors, which are about 8 to 12% of the neonatal tumors. The soft tissue tumors are very rare in neonates. The benign tumors in extremities are vascular malformations, lipomas, lipoblastomas, and fibroblastic tumors. The lipoblastoma are rare, benign, rapidly growing, and which are seen in trunk and limbs. The complete excision is advised for lipoblastomas. And for fibroblastic and myofibroblastic tumors, they are benign, locally aggressive tumors with little or no propensity to metastasize. The surgical resection is advised for these tumors. Coming to malignant tumors in infants, the rhabdomyosarcoma comprises about 32%, which is the most common malignant soft tissue sarcoma, followed by infantile fibrosarcoma and rhabdoid tumors. The rhabdoid tumors are rare, aggressive. It can occur anywhere in the kidney, brain, or soft tissues. Surgical resection is advised for rhabdoid tumors, which are relatively chemoresistant, and early tumor recurrence following surgical resection is observed. These rhabdoid tumors have poor prognosis. These are all about general principles. The birth considerations, the neoplasms that comprise fetal airway represent an immediate threat with a potential for hypoxia, ischemic brain injury, and death. The cervical teratomas, lymphatic malformations, hemangiomas of the neck, they most commonly cause extrinsic airway obstruction. The mediastinal tumors that compress the great vessels or the intrathoracic trachea that also demand specialized pre and postnatal care. The last tumors like sacrococcygeal teratoma, they consider for cesarean section or early delivery to avoid intrauterine or perinatal complications. Coming to few procedures, fetal procedures, exit and operation on placental support. The operation on placental support, it is a cesarean. In this, we do cesarean delivery of the head and thorax, followed by managing the obstructing cervical masses with bronchoscopy and intubation. In this procedure, we use inhaled isoflurane. Around deep anesthesia is given with 2 to 3% of the isoflurane, which minimizes the uterine contractions, preserve fetoplacental circulation, and prevent abruption. But the disadvantages of operation on placental support, which provides inadequate tocolysis and interrupt uteroplacental gas exchange. The most common procedure we use nowadays is exit procedure, that is ex vitro intrapartum treatment. It is a more comprehensive management approach to fetal and neonatal airway obstruction, pulmonary and mediastinal masses leading to airway obstruction. So the procedure is intubating the mother and deep inhalation anesthesia is given, which causes usually isoflurane is used, which causes adequate uterine relaxation, followed by hysterotomy. A small hole is made in the uterus, followed by delivery of the head and thorax of the fetus. The procedures like bronchoscopy, intubation of the child, tracheostomy, excision of the mass, and ECMO cannulation can be done through this hysterotomy. In this, feto-placental circulation is preserved and airway is secured. Following the procedure, umbilical cord is divided and baby is delivered. So coming to common specific lesions, teratomas. The most common neonatal tumors are teratomas, which comprises about 30%. These are midline tumors from pineal gland to coccyx. The origin of teratomas are pluripotent germ cells that arrest in the abnormal locations during embryogenesis. The sacrococcygeal teratomas are most common type, followed by intracranial, cervical, palatal, nasopharyngeal, cardiac, gastric, and mediastinal teratomas. The CNS central nervous system teratomas have the worst prognosis, and the gastric teratomas have the good prognosis. Teratomas include all three germ layers. The most tumors are benign. These tumors are again divided into mature and immature. The germ layers involved germ layers are ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. From all the germ layers, there will be tissues will be there. From the ectoderm, most commonly neural tissue, which is a dominant feature of immature teratomas. From mesenchyme, smooth muscles, cartilage, fat and bone, and from endoderm, respiratory and GI epithelium are there. In coming to sacrococcygeal teratoma, which comprises about 40 to 60% of the teratomas. Most commonly,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Actually, on my screen, the slides are not changing. Can you just ask the others also?
It's changing.
It's stuck on operation on placental support.
It's changing.
Okay.
Coming to sacrococcygeal teratoma, which comprises about 40 to 60% of the teratomas, most commonly seen in female child. The incidence is around 1 in 35,000 live births. Sacrococcygeal teratomas can be diagnosed in utero. They present with mass, may present with urinary retention, constipation, a palpable abdominal mass, or failure to thrive, and there will be raised AFP and beta HCG levels. So coming to classification of sacrococcygeal teratoma, in type 1, it is mainly external, that is sacrococcygeal, with minimal presacral component. In type 2, external component on presentation, but have a substantial intrapelvic component. In type 3, minimal external component with majority mass located intrapelvic and extending into the abdomen. And in type 4 tumors, they are found entirely in the presacral space without any external component. So the complications of sacrococcygeal teratomas are premature labor or polyhydramnios because of the mass effect, or increased intrauterine volume, tumor rupture, dystocia, fetal hydrops, and fetal demise. The prenatally diagnosed sacrococcygeal teratomas should undergo frequent surveillance and observation. So based on the size, the sacrococcygeal teratomas are divided into small, moderate, and large sized sacrococcygeal teratoma. 2 to 5 centimeter is small, 5 to 10 centimeters moderate, and more than 10 centimeters is large tumors. If the intrauterine size is If it is increasing more than 5 centimeter, the doctors should advise early delivery or cesarean section. Cyst aspiration and serial amniocentesis can be tried in selected patients. The tumor with predominantly solid components with high vascularity, we advise for open fetal surgery for tumor debulking. Cesarean section delivery should be considered in larger tumors. Postnatally, en bloc resection of the tumor along with the coccyx is the primary treatment modality. If coccyx is not removed, or if there is a spillage, the high chances of recurrence, that is around 40%. Approximately 10% of the neonatal teratomas contain yolk sac tumors with concurrent malignancy increasing with age. In these cases, we advise adjuvant chemotherapy. The outcome of fetal sacrococcygeal teratoma has worst prognosis. The mortality is around 30 to 50%, and the neonates presenting with fetal hydrops, the mortality is around 100%. For survival of the neonatal sacrococcygeal teratoma is around 90% with complete excision. Coming to second most common neonatal tumor, that is neuroblastoma. It is the most common congenital malignancy in childhood. They arise from primitive neural crest cells and or neuroblasts. 90% of the fetal and neonatal cases are seen in adrenal glands. The other sites in decreasing frequency are retroperitoneum, posterior mediastinum, and neck. The incidence is 1 in 1 lakh, and mean age at diagnosis is 18 months. So the differential diagnosis for neuroblastomas are the adrenal hemorrhage, abscess, cyst, and renal anomalies. In antenatal ultrasonography, the solid or cystic adrenal masses should raise a suspicion of neuroblastoma in prenatal ultrasonography. Most mothers are asymptomatic, but few may experience hypertension, preeclampsia due to elevated catecholamines in neonatal circulation. That is called as mirror syndrome. The neuroblastomas secrete high levels of catecholamines and their byproducts, which is helpful in diagnosis. In neuroblastomas, most tumors are in neonates have favorable histology because of n-mic non-amplification, stoma-rich appearance. So for small lesions, observation is advised, and for surgical resection is advised for localized cases. So there are 4 stages of neuroblastoma: type 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4S. So type 1 and 2, they are localized tumors. Type 3 is midline, large, unresectable tumors with the involvement of the major vessels, or unilateral tumor with the contralateral lymph nodes. In type 4S, that is a unique type which has the localized tumor with metastasis isolated to liver, skin, or bone marrow, that is bone marrow involvement less than 10%, which has favorable prognosis, and spontaneous regression without specific treatment is possible in type 4S. The overall prognosis is excellent in neuroblastoma with survival rate of around 70 to 100%. Coming to hepatic tumors, the infantile hepatic hemangiomas, the most common primary liver tumors in newborns, the most lesions diagnosed on prenatal imaging, the few cases present with cutaneous hemangiomas, which prompts evaluation of hepatic tumors postnatally. These tumors are benign. Rapid postnatal growth followed by involution is seen. The few lesions develop severe arteriovascular shunting and lead to high output cardiac failures, fetal hydrops, and fetal demise. So a few studies shows corticosteroids have useful in these cases. The surgical resection, selective hepatic arterial embolization, and liver transplantations are advised based on the size of the hemangiomas. Coming to mesenchymal hematomas, these are the second most common hepatic tumors in newborns. They contain elements of normal hepatic parenchyma, cysts of varying sizes, along with portal veins, biliary structures, and all. So these mesenchymal hematomas are benign. They identified on prenatal imaging. 75% of these hematomas are seen on the right hepatic lobe. The compression on intra-abdominal vascular structures leads to non-immune fetal hydrops and fetal demise. It is based on the size of the hematomas. So the tumors with large cystic components, fetal aspiration can be tried, followed by postnatal complete surgical excision. Coming to hepatoblastoma, this is the most common primary hepatic malignancy. The serum AFP level is elevated in more than 50% of the cases, may remain elevated for several months with benign hepatic masses. The surgical resection is the primary modality, and chemotherapy for unresectable tumors and metastatic diseases. The newborns with congenital hepatoblastoma have similar survival compared to older children with similar stages. Coming to ovarian cysts, ovarian cysts are the most common benign masses in neonatal girls which cause hormonal stimulation. The cause is hormonal stimulation. For all the neonatal tumors, maternal hormonal or immunoglobulins are the causes. The most common complication of ovarian cysts are torsion with ovarian loss. The many torsions occur prenatally, but in these cases, Doppler is an unreliable because normal flow does not exclude the diagnosis. So the fetal cyst aspiration can be tried to mitigate the risk of in utero torsion, but there is no size cutoff for ovarian cysts. So the simple cysts less than 4 to 5 centimeter are observed for spontaneous regression, and large cysts, cyst aspiration or surgical intervention can be tried for to prevent the ovarian torsion. The surgical options are unroofing or partial or total cystectomy and oophorectomy. We have to try preservation of the ovarian parenchyma. For complex cysts and cysts which fails to regress and recurrent cysts, surgical removal is advised. Coming to rhabdomyosarcoma, that is the most common soft tissue sarcoma in neonates, which is aggressive tumor, the embryonal tumor with the high grade histology with the local invasiveness and propensity to metastasis. There are two subtypes, embryonal and alveolar. The embryonal is most common, which has better prognosis. The most common sites are head and neck, followed by genitourinary system and extremities. The lymphatic involvement and metastasis seen in around 20% at presentation. The treatment includes the systemic chemotherapy for metastasis and surgical resection and radiotherapy for local diseases. Coming to renal tumor, malignant renal tumor, that is congenital mesoblastic nephroma. The most common renal tumor in neonates and the first 3 months of life. The prenatal identification can be done with polyhydramnios, presence of anechoic circle, the mass with anechoic circle or ring sign with respiratory compromise if it is large, and circulatory compromise and fetal hydrops. So this tumor is the benign tumor with which has two subtypes, classic and cellular, and the mixed type also. The cellular subtype has large tumor burdens with seen in older age, and many are cystic. Radical nephrectomy is advised. The aggressive cellular subtype may require adjuvant chemotherapy. The metastasis is seen around 2% of cases, and overall survival is good, which is around 95 to 98%. Coming to conclusion, the neonatal tumors are extremely diverse, heterogeneous group of neoplasms. They demonstrate broad spectrum of behaviors and outcomes. Some regress spontaneously, and others are resistant to aggressive multimodal therapy. So the majority are benign tumors, but histological classification not always predictive of behavior or overall outcome. So the treatment requires clear understanding of natural history of disease and limitation of each treatment modality. Thank you, sir.
A few things I wanted you to do was,
Yes.
of all the things which is very important for us will be perinatal management of neuroblastoma, because many of them will be spontaneously regressing type, some may not. So you did highlight, I'm not saying no, but I wanted to re-emphasize and tell about approach to a neonate with a neuroblastoma. When to wait, how to wait, and what is the protocol, and when to intervene. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
You don't know the answer?
No, sir.
Hey, you did cover, man. What is the prerequisites for conservative management of a neuroblastoma in an infant? We discussed last time. In fact, in your presentation also, you did mention it. Size, epidemic status, location, progress. Any clues? Pooja or Jyoti, would you like to chip in? You seem to have gone blank.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear
Yeah,
me,
Pooja.
sir?
Yes, Pooja.
Yeah, so in any infant, sir, the first thing would be in any neonate, the first thing to do would be to get a biopsy or an FNAC of the lesion, because most, like we already have spoken, the histology of the lesion as well as the NMIC status and other chromosomal abnormalities are going to play an important role as to how we are going to be managing these children. The second thing is regarding the age. So so if an neonate comes to us, at the age of presentation, like at what age the child is presenting, immediately after birth or a few days later, that is one thing which is going to determine. So we are going to biopsy this child. That is number one.
Pooja, I am not
Yes,
clear
sir.
about this age, because I thought less than 3 months we club all of them together. At least that's what I've been doing.
Yes,
Correct
sir.
me if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir.
So it
Less than
doesn't
3
matter
months if
whether
they're
they present.
presenting. So the thing is that if they're presenting, like I am assuming that we are taking all infants. If it's purely neonatal, then of course there is no doubt. But
Okay.
yeah, if
Up to
it's
3 months,
purely
sir,
new,
okay, na? Okay.
yes, sir. Okay.
Okay.
So the
Continue,
first thing
please.
to
Sorry.
do, yeah, the first thing to do would be to biopsy this child, sir, whichever tumor comes to us. Now, biopsying it, looking at the histology, whether it is favorable or unfavorable histology, as well as the NMIC status and the staging of the tumor. So all of these things are going to play a role in the management of this child. Suppose if it's a good histology tumor, like say a ganglioneuroma or a ganglioneuroma intermixed, then in those cases, definitely we can observe this child. But if it is a child who is coming with, say, an L2 or an L3 tumor, or say a metastatic tumor, then the management will be different.
Thank you, Pooja. I wanted
sir.
clarification about a case we had seen sometime last year.
Yes,
This
sir.
is a child with a small lesion in the adrenal gland, very suggestive of neuroblastoma. All
Okay, sir.
scans are suggestive, but
Okay,
it is
sir.
not easily amenable for either an FNAC or a biopsy. So
And
we are
there was
not too sure the NMIC status.
the metastatic
I think we
workup was
discussed
negative,
when we
sir.
considered this child, metastatic workup was negative.
Then
But we are
obviously,
not
sir,
able to biopsy because this is a small newborn child with a small lesion within the adrenal gland. You know what I'm saying?
then
It's so
yes,
difficult to
sir.
do.
Yeah, if then
I think you might be remembering this case
yes,
also.
sir.
In fact, we had involved you also and we conserved. I
Yes,
think
sir.
we operated this child after 6 months or
And
so.
that child came back after some time also. So in this child,
Yes.
sir, who has just come with a very small lesion, they have done the metastatic workup. The metastatic workup is completely negative and it's not amenable to biopsy. Observation is
Yes.
a good strategy. But where the tumor is large and it is amenable to biopsy, definitely a biopsy and an NMIC would be warranted. But in such very small tumors, I think observation would be a good strategy. The child that you are talking about, sir, it
Yes.
was a child who had come with bilateral lesions actually on the head region.
Correct.
And
Correct.
both of them were very small. And because the child was so small, sir didn't want to give chemotherapy. We observed the child over a period of time.
Yes.
And on serial ultrasounds, we found that the child's lesion was growing. And at
Correct.
that point, we considered a biopsy. And it did show like lesions which were not a very good histology. And we had given a few cycles of chemotherapy to that child.
And I think did we
Later on,
operate
6
that
months
later? I don't remember. I remember
I
after 6
think
months child was intervened. I don't know
I
about
think
operation status,
sir,
but we.
operation.
I don't. Okay.
Yes, sir. Operate we didn't, but chemotherapy yes, because the child
Yes.
presented to us again at 6 to 7 months of age.
Yes. Correct. Correct. Okay. Next question for Vinay is about the utility of AFP in a testicular tumor in the newborn child. AFP will also always be conventionally be high even in a normal neonate. So how are you going to differentiate between a neoplasm and a not? Because I don't think AFP is
Yes.
a criterion to identify testicular tumors.
Uh,
You agree, Pooja?
Sir, actually, this is an area which is a little dicey because for like you said, for neonates the levels are usually very high, but there are normograms which are available, sir.
Okay.
Like for
Okay.
neonates for alpha fetoprotein. So if you look at the normograms according to the age of the child, like say at
Okay.
20 days or 21 days or a month, and if the levels are much higher than what the cutoff is according to the normogram, then definitely it should indicate that we may be dealing with a malignancy in this child.
Correct.
So we have normograms available for that, sir,
Okay.
according to the
In that
age.
case, only two things is one, you need to have a reliable lab where they're going to give values.
Correct,
Because
sir.
previously I used to get a report saying it's more than 40,000. I mean, it doesn't mean
Okay, sir.
anything.
Yes,
So
sir.
that is a problem where we require a quantitative assay.
Yes,
The
sir.
reason why I was trying to tell you this, I remember a case about maybe about 10 years back. We had a case from Command Hospital. This
Yes, sir.
child basically had a bilateral testicular mass
Yes,
at
sir.
birth. So they
Yes,
thought
sir.
it is, they said AFP is high, so they thought it is a testicular malignancy. Bigger of the two, after ultrasound CT, they went and resected.
Yes,
They
sir.
didn't know what to do with the other mass, they sent it.
Okay.
Alas, it was a perinatal torsion.
Oh, okay.
They mistook it to be a neoplasm, and the child ended up with one archectomy already.
Yes,
Other
sir.
one already had a perinatal torsion. It was difficult. So I told whatever is there, since it's a perinatal torsion,
Yes, sir.
whatever germ cells are there, it is better to leave it. So I conserved it. I didn't take it out. But
Yes, sir.
ultimately, the child finally became what you call anarchic.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is the reason
Yeah.
for which I wanted people to, be aware of this too.
So usually in malignancies, it is quite clear cut. The alpha fetoprotein will be in lakhs. And by 1 week it comes down to thousands, say 25,000, 35,000. So if it's in lakhs, either hepatoblastoma or germ cell tumor.
Okay, good. Other thing I wanted to ask Vinay was
Yes.
about the exit procedure. You said in exit procedure, you said the patient can be taken, especially if it shows with the neck lesions. You
Yes.
can intubate the child on mother and tocolysis. You can on placental support. You can
Yes.
give. You can intubate the child, do tracheostomy and excise.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I was under the impression that you can't do prolonged procedures because once the baby is delivered on
Yes.
placental support, I thought the time limit was about 20 to 30 minutes and not longer than that. Correct
Yes.
me if I'm wrong.
So small lesions can be excised, sir. Aspirations can be done, like tracheostomy, intubation, bronchoscopy. Such small procedures can be done to stabilize the fetus, followed by delivery of the child, sir.
Correct. So because on placental support, after the baby is born, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think you can wait for more than 20, 30 minutes because placenta cannot sustain longer than that.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's what. Please cross check and confirm and tell me, is it okay or not? Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Ramchandra sir, any suggestions or anything that you need to add, sir?
Yeah, Ramesh, I thought the focus should have been more on specific tumors, like
Okay.
as you said, perinatal neuroblastoma, and
Yes,
also these exit procedure and the other uh, fetal and perinatal treatment strategies that should have
Yes, sir.
been
Yes, sir.
more focused on. That's what I
Yes, sir.
felt.
I agree, sir. I
I
agree.
think lot of discussion was duplicated and it was
Yes, sir.
not necessary.
Yes, sir. I agree. 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 I just wanted to highlight about my experience. I've seen basically antenatally detected teratomas, neuroblastomas, hepatoblastomas at birth. Then I've seen Wilms tumor, congenital mesomelastic nephroma. I've seen neck masses, teratomas presenting before birth, after birth. And most of the times, like you said, we have to go ahead and categorize and do it according to what is really required. Pooja, would you like to say anything more? Deepak, particularly
Yes, sir.
moderating the session.
Yes, sir. Just 2 or 3 points, sir.
Yes, please.
So the first thing that I would like to ask Dr. Vinay is, like, of all these things you discussed, right? You discussed plenty of neonatal tumors. Why do you think we have to discuss this topic in separate? Like, what special considerations in neonates make these tumors unique, and we need to discuss them separately?
Excellent question, Pooja. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, I can hear you,
Yeah.
Dr. Vinay.
The treatment options for neonatal is most of the tumors have different compared to older children's, ma'am.
Yeah, like different in what way?
A few tumors they can regress like hemangiomas, tumors, and all
Okay.
they spontaneously.
Okay.
And
So one
Agreed. One is tumor behavior is different. Next.
different, correct.
Next.
Tumor biology is different. They can regress on their own, and you might not need to intervene.
Anything else? Number two, it can have manifestation in the mother herself.
Exactly.
and this
So-
chemotherapy and radiation, ma'am.
Yes.
So it is not required. And
Don't say not required.
Not
Limited role.
required. Yeah, limited.
Those are limited role.
Which
Okay.
is the major modality of treatment here, Dr. Vinay, in most of these neonatal tumors?
surgical, ma'am.
Yes, surgery is the main role of main modality of treatment, and like you said, the role of chemotherapy and radiotherapy is limited. Okay, the second thing is, even if you are going to give chemotherapy in certain situations, usually we calculate chemotherapy according to body surface area in neonates, in adult children, older children. But in neonates, the doses are calculated according to body weight. This is a very important consideration. And that is mainly because most of their systems are immature. The kidneys as well as the liver, their functioning is immature, and the way they process these chemotherapeutic drugs is different. So the dose that you need to give them is much lesser than what you would give in older children, and they process it also in a different way. All right. And the side effects of chemotherapy are going to be much more exaggerated in children because of the same reasons. Okay.
I would like to clarify, is chemotherapy in these newborns given based on the weight, or I was under the impression that they used to calculate the total dose by surface area and give only 50% of it? I mean, that used to be one of the approaches too.
Ideally, it should be given according to the weight. Like most of the protocols, if you see COP or others, they give according to the weight. And what we used to practice at Kidwai was, what sir would do is, he would calculate the body surface area dose and give it by 50%. So that was practiced at Kidwai, but according to like whatever literature is available, it should be given according to weight, sir.
Thank you very much. It's an excellent clarification. Vinay, like Anthala sir said, I was looking for you to talk more about the embryonal tumors. Okay. For example, hepatoblastoma, how do you present? Because I've seen a hepatoblastoma presenting at newborn period. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So these are the places where it introduces a lot of, as I told, diagnostic dilemma, therapeutic dilemma, surgical challenges. It would have been great if you had highlighted. Doesn't matter, even if you can tell us now about perinatal management of hepatoblastoma, it will be good. Can you? If not, at least Pooja, just summarize for us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think Vinay is sort of now, what do you call, mentally shut off.
Okay. Sir, recently, like you said, we had a child who was detected with a perinatal hepatoblastoma. We managed it about 2 months back only. And that child had presented with a progressively increasing abdominal distension. Now, this child, alpha-fetoprotein level was elevated in lax, and the imaging, of course, was suggestive of a malignant tumor. So, hepatoblastoma diagnosis was established. In this child, the initial workup, whatever we had done, the CT scan, we wanted to actually see what would be the reserve of the liver like if we were to operate, and so it was involving the right lobe of the liver, and it was a pretext stage 2 tumor. And so the reserve of the liver was quite sufficient. So we went ahead with an upfront hepatectomy, partial hepatectomy, because the sir was confident that we would be able to conserve a significant amount of the liver. Post that, the child was given cycles of chemotherapy, 2 cycles of chemotherapy, and then reassess. So the ideal management in such children would be, if possible, to go ahead with an upfront hepatectomy followed by at least 6 cycles of chemotherapy. And if not possible, to give neoadjuvant chemotherapy, reduce the size of the tumor, and then go for resection. Of course, the metastatic workup would be important to rule out any metastatic disease in the lungs.
Thank you very much, Pooja. Deepak, anything that you need to add?
No, not much, sir.
Okay, if there's nothing much, I think we will start winding up the session. A few general announcements. Then we will continue have the classes at 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, one. What I would like to say is, what I have realized is, even though we have thought it will finish in 30 minutes, sometimes the talks are exceeding longer than that. So the presenter, especially if you think it's going to go much beyond, say, 40 minutes or so, please tell me earlier so that we can split it into 2. It will be worthwhile to see if we can start that discussion at 8 sharp, finish at 8:30, and finish the discussions within the next 15 minutes so that everybody has enough time for everything. Okay. So if the presenter generally feels that it is too vast a topic that they can cover, please tell me upfront so that we can divide it into 2 sessions. All right. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir, sir,
Okay.
one
Okay.
question, sir.
Yeah, please. Tell me, Jagu.
Sir, I'm not really able to differentiate between OPS and the exit procedure which he described, sir.
Oops and exit.
Oops.
Yes, sir.
Vinay?
Oops.
Vinay?
Because he mentioned the same thing for both procedures, as we will be giving hysterectomy, as well as that will be dependent on placenta, and we'll be doing procedure with that small incision. Really, I could not able to make the difference between both.
Hello, sir.
Vinay and Ramchandra, sir.
Yeah, I will answer that question, Jagdish.
Yes, sir.
They started off with the operating on placental support,
Yes,
and
sir.
they found, as Dr. Ramesh pointed out, that there were limitations to doing extensive surgical procedure on placental support. And
Okay,
also that name, most surgeons in the US don't like that word to be uttered in the OR. Oops.
Okay.
Oops, they don't like. They say that's a very, very bad word. So that's the reason and for these technical reasons, they switched over to the exit procedure. So no longer
Okay.
does oops now, and and anyway they don't occur oops because it's a bad word in the OR. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So exit procedure is the one which is being done now, and as Dr. Ramesh pointed out, it is a very specific, predetermined, and they do all the preparation for this. They practice it beforehand. And
Yes,
this
sir.
is done in precise stepwise manner, and there is no slip up. It is just like how you do resuscitation in trauma.
Okay,
So everybody has defined role and they stick to their role. So
Okay.
most of these procedures are done within 10 minutes or 15 minutes maximum, and it involves securing the airway, make sure that there is hemodynamic stability. There is no instability of the baby. Because one of the main reasons of, complications of this is the severe postpartum hemorrhage which can occur in the mother following this type of procedure. So they want to limit the tocolysis as much as possible. They want to control the tocolysis. Okay.
Okay.
So as soon as this airway is secured and the vascular access is secured, this baby is immediately shifted to a table in the adjoining OR in the same OR, and any stabilization or any procedure is done at the same time once the cord is clamped. So that is how exit procedure occurs. Okay. And it is generally done for conditions called as chaos,
Okay.
congenital high airway obstruction syndrome. Okay.
Yes, sir. Sir, basically, technically speaking, both are same only, but they have changed the name because of
because they do not any longer operate on the placental support. No operation is done. So basically, it is just a procedure.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Shimurthy, sir, any suggestions, sir? I'm glad to see you again.
Ramesh?
Yes, sir.
The speaker giving us an extensive details about the tumors or cataloged in the book.
Okay, sir.
We have extensive experience at the Indira Gandhi Institute of complex tumors which are in the thorax, in the abdomen,
Okay, sir.
intraabdominal, retroperitoneal, and various other things.
Yes, sir.
I wish if you had the discussion based on a sacrococcygeal teratoma, let us say, for example, intrapelvic and extrapelvic,
Okay, sir.
you will first put the case for discussion
Yes, sir.
so that the approach to the student, the management of the patient,
Yes, sir.
followed by the theory of it,
Okay,
the
sir.
impression to the student and the understanding would be better.
Okay,
Right?
sir. Lovely.
What has happened
Okay.
is that there is a
Yes, sir.
cataloging of all the tumors
Okay,
in the
sir.
neonatal period.
Okay, sir.
Now, at the end of the talk, all that what has been heard of is forgotten easily. Okay. However,
Okay.
if you have taken one neuroblastoma, which has
Okay.
crossed the line, or
Okay, sir.
one tumor appearing at 1 month of age,
Okay.
or a sacrococcygeal teratoma, which was mainly intra-abdominal,
Okay, sir.
investigation and its approach would have given them an impression
Yes,
how
sir.
to handle this kind of problem.
Okay, sir.
Followed
Yes, sir.
by various other options in management
Yes, sir.
of other types, etc., etc. We
Point very
only
well taken, sir.
we
Yeah.
only need to know about 3 or 4 tumors which
Okay,
are
sir.
relevant and which do occur. For example,
Yes, sir.
cervical teratoma, mediastinal
Okay.
teratoma, neuroblastoma, and
Okay, sir.
obviously some abdominal tumors.
Okay, sir.
5 or 6 such tumors
Okay, sir.
and management followed
Okay,
by
sir.
the theory of it will
Okay.
leave a
Okay.
lasting impression.
Done, sir. Point taken,
Okay.
sir. I will definitely give a thought to it. I will modify it. If not for this month, from next month onwards, we'll do the same, sir. One. Number two, what you said is also very good, sir, because what we'll do is we'll start auditing our own results. Now that Puja is there, like for example, we can audit our own results of say Wilms tumor, neuroblastoma, sacrococcygeal teratoma. It will really come in handy and about the lessons. And that will also leave like practical utility, sir. We will definitely take
Yes,
it
sir.
next time. Done.
If you can put a case,
Yes, sir.
discuss, and then call the opinion of various other people concerned,
Yes,
their
sir.
approach, modification, and their experience will come into play.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We will do that, sir. In fact, that's what we started doing in our tumor boards. And this week, again, Friday afternoon is going to be our tumor board, sir. Friday afternoon, we have a tumor board in which we are discussing specific
Sir.
cases, sir.
So I
Yes.
wanted to discuss about that, Ramesh sir.
Yeah.
I spoke to the radiology department and the pathology department, and they told me that some of the students have sort of turned positive and
Okay.
are symptomatic. So
Okay.
radiology, they said they cannot cooperate. So I was
Okay.
thinking, can we ask Dr. Dhananjay from
Yeah.
like if he agrees, sir?
Ramesh.
If he agrees,
Ramesh is very good in imaging. Please
okay,
involve.
sir. Yeah. So
Or
I
if
will
you want
discuss with
outside,
them.
I can get Praveen or Radesh or anybody. That's not a
The
problem
thing
at
is,
all.
like with the Kidwai, the thing is that they have students, so they can prepare the PPTs and show us the findings and
Okay.
everything. I don't know if a consultant would sort of agree to it.
I will
But let
talk
me
to
speak
you.
to Dr. Dhanjay. Yes,
No,
sir.
you
We
talk to
can do that.
Ramesh or Dhananjay, I can get other people also. Not at all a problem. Not at all a
Okay, sir.
problem.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you
One.
can please discuss it. Yes, sir.
I will discuss when I come and meet you. I'll be there in the campus
sir.
in about half an hour's time. I'll discuss
I'll
with you.
come, sir. I'll come, sir.
Okay. Next thing
Yeah.
is I wanted to tell you was there's, I think, in fact, for tumor board, one more standby case is a case which was seen in our OPD yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Intraabdominal mass, which query
Yes, sir.
lymphoma, then I think you saw query hepatoblastoma.
Yes, sir.
If we can complete the workup before Friday, maybe we can include that case also.
The workup will be difficult, sir. They
No,
have
no, no.
done the
If it happens, I told you as a standby.
Okay,
That's
sir.
all. Okay. Otherwise, we'll discuss next time. Not a problem. Thank you very
Okay,
much,
sir.
Pooja. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.